Well, hello there. Thank you for joining us for the latest edition of Telile 24/7. I'm your host, Adam Cooke, and we have a very busy show this week. I'm talking to 4 different people who are running for municipal council in various districts here in Richmond County. Later on in the show, I'll be speaking to District 1 candidates Rod Samson and James Goyesh. We'll also interview Carolyn Clackdoyle, who is running in District 2. And to kick things off, let's head to Lewisdale, where we'll meet one of the candidates running in District 3, Melanie Sampson. Here she is now. We are pleased to welcome District 3 Municipal candidate Melanie Sampson to Telile 24/7 this week. Melanie, thank you for meeting with us here in Lewisdale today.
Thank you for coming here, Adam, and enjoying the beautiful scenery here in Lewisdale.
Of course, Lewisdale is a big part of the electorate for District 3, which also includes Evanston, Whiteside, Lower River Inhabitants, and Point Tupper. Can you give us a sense on how the campaign is going for you covering this big riding?
It's been going really well, Adam. Thanks for asking. It is a different campaign, of course, this year because of COVID-19. I made that commitment to my supporters and to myself and to the constituents that I wouldn't knock on doorsteps unless I was invited to do so. So I started right away with a pretty aggressive social media campaign, started a campaign page, well over 500 likes, so I'm pretty pleased with that. Getting lots of interaction from residents as well, lots of messages and lots of likes and loves in the social media world, so that's good. I'm also reaching out to a lot of people through Messenger, through texts, through phone calls, and again, getting really, really great response. Lots of people happy to share their thoughts and their concerns, and tons of people with some great ideas of things that we could look for if I'm elected to council. And I have done some house visits as well. Like I said, happy to do those, and those have gone really well as well. So I'm feeling very positive about the campaign and very energized as we come into this last push to the end.
How has this campaign experience been for you overall? Do you feel it was different from what you expected when you decided to run just a few months ago?
No, I guess I would say it's going about as I expected that it would go. I'm a bit of a planner, so when I set out to run for council, I sat down and Brad and I and the kids chatted about what that would look like for our family in terms of time management, and so that's going as we expected it would go. And then I just had a plan. Every week I want to do a video. Every week I want to do a post or two every week. I want to do a couple of newsletters. So we're right on track, right on schedule. Things are going exactly as I anticipated they would.
Well, let's get to the elephant in the room, or more specifically, the elephant in District 3. It's impossible to talk about this race without talking about the fact that you're running against the sitting warden for Richmond County, who has won the past election for District 3 by acclamation and won the previous 2 elections for the former District 6. Do you feel like voters in District 3 are ready to consider making a change and are at least willing to hear your pitch for somebody new?
Yeah, actually, some people have asked me when I first agreed that I would run, why are you running? Why would you choose now? Why? And the answer is actually the answer to your question, which is part of the reason that I am running is because a fair number of residents in the district have come to me and said to me, in August, we're really looking for some change, and we feel that you are the right conduit for that change. You're the right person to be the change. And I was humbled by that because I think a lot of the people who did bring that to my attention were people that I do respect greatly. And so I took it exactly how it was intended, which was not to say that, we've had 12 years with Brian in Lewisdale in this district, but the folks in the surrounding areas for the last 4 years through acclamation. But just looking for different ideas. And someone said to me, Melanie, if you were there 12 years, I wouldn't vote for you either. And I said, okay, fair enough. So yeah, they've been receptive to change. And so I guess I would say to that there are always pluses and minuses to experience. And so with experience comes sometimes good parts and bad parts. And so I think it really is about what residents choose to pick out of the experience. And in some cases, even when they're looking at the positives, they're still saying, yeah, maybe it's time for some different eyes. So I think they are receptive to change. And like I said, I'm quite humbled that they think I'm a suitable change.
Well, let's take a look at things through Melanie Sampson's eyes for a moment. You've had a lot of professional experience over the years, most notably at NSCC. How has that experience prepared you for running in an election campaign, but also for being a councillor?
Yeah. I think that, in all of my career choices, so whether that was in public practice in accounting firms, or whether it was running my own businesses, or whether it was working at NSCC as an adult educator, or whether it's in my volunteer work, or whatever I do, it really is about teamwork, and it really is about cooperation and respect and, clear communication and finding that common ground. I talk about that often with residents is I just feel that a lot of issues could be resolved if we could just, as a group, just take a step back, find the place where we belong together, and then move out from there. So I would say, certainly my financial expertise is not going to hurt on council. It's what I've done for 25 years, so it's what I know. But I think further to that, I am a good team player. I've been told that by many people, and I know that myself. I do know my own strengths, and communication is a strong strength of mine, which comes, of course, from the teaching and the learning. And I am a lifelong learner, so I'm always interested to hear from other groups. This is taped after we had our candidates forum last night. So, last night I just said, the reality is that I am not a lot of the people I represent. So I'm not a senior. I don't have a young family anymore. My boys are aged 17 to 20. I'm not looking for affordable housing. I'm not a lot of things. And so if I'm not open to learning, then how will I ever be able to relate to those people? How will I ever be able to help those people in my district? So I would say as well that that's something that I've learned over the years. In the field of finance, you need to continue to learn. In the field of education, you need to continue to learn. And I'm willing to learn.
So what have you learned over the course of the last couple of months of campaigning in District 3? Whether it's been on the rare doorsteps that you've been hitting or it's on social media, what are people around this district telling you about what they'd like to see happen at the council level?
Yeah. Again, I would say, I'm getting the standard commentary that we're hearing from, I think, most of the candidates. People are looking for more transparency, and they're looking for more communication. And of course, those are very important. I know that they're important. But I will say that, I've really campaigned in a positive way, in that I believe that those issues of transparency and communication, those are things of the past. And so I really do have a lot of confidence that a new council would alleviate those issues for residents. And so what they've said to me, and what I feel as well, is that we need to really focus on looking forward. We need to look forward. What are we going to do in the district? What are we going to do in the county? How are we going to grow? And I will say that all of them are talking about, we need to see some economic development happen. Economic development needs to include tourism. And I couldn't agree more with both of those things. I've heard some awesome ideas about campgrounds. I've heard awesome ideas about developing our vacant or soon-to-be vacant schools. I've heard great ideas about healthcare. I've heard lots and lots of great ideas. And so I've got a scribbler. So those people who've sat with me saw my little book. But if you didn't, if you talked to me on the phone, I have one. And I've just been making a list of all of these great ideas so that when a new council comes together, hopefully I'm at that table. And when we do our strategic plan, these are some ideas I can put forth as things that we maybe could do in Richmond County.
So flipping that question around, what are some of your personal priority areas as a candidate? And if you are elected as councillor, what are your day one or day two priorities for District 3?
I think day one, day two, that's where we need to reach out, of course, to the candidates who've put their name forward and been successful, because that will be the team that will work together to grow Richmond County. I think priority two is actually to reach out to the candidates who perhaps were not successful because they are so interested in the county that they actually put their name forward for council. And so we need to harness some of that energy, and we want to invite them to join us on this mission that we have of growing the county. And I think we hear a lot of that, a lot of positive messages from the candidates. So I would say, building that piece in. One of the big things I've, committed again to myself and to my constituents is consistent communication. So I think Rod Samson said it last night, never stop campaigning. And I think that was a good way to put it. My intention has always been to continue with social media information, to continue with the newsletters that I've mailed out, to continue with connecting with residents one-on-one, when it's okay to do that in person, obviously going to events and things like that. But I think it's about continuing to create and build that relationship that I would have with the residents. My slogan is rebuild, restore, and rejuvenate. And I take that at every level of what my job would be as a councillor for District 3, right? Rebuilding those relationships inside the district, inside the county, and outside. And, of course, rejuvenating the people of the district, the people in the county, and harnessing all of that and using it all to move our county forward.
I'm intrigued to hear you talking about wanting to keep the dialogue going with other candidates, even if they aren't successful in their districts.
Well, I mean, heck, if they put their name forward, they clearly have some interest, so let's do it.
My last question to you, Melanie, is one that I've been asking to all the candidates I've been interviewing for Telile 24/7. Who inspires you in a campaign like this? Is there somebody in your life, either in the distant past or someone more recently, that would really want you to make a difference in terms of public service and is egging you on, even in spirit, as we go forward?
I love that question. That's actually a really great question. In teaching, we often ask students, who was your most influential teacher? So I think it's really neat that you're asking that question. To say that there is a single person, I guess I'm going to say no. And I'll tell you why I say no. And 5 years ago, as most people know, there was, quite a significant tragic event that happened to the people of Bluesdale. And I think that affected a lot of people in a lot of different ways. And I think for me, it's actually that event that catapulted me into service. To see the response of the people of this community. And I know, people of the outlying areas, people of Dundee, St. George's Channel, Evanston, Whiteside, Cleveland, all of the people, their hearts were broken for our community. But the people of Bluesdale really stepped up and they came forward and they organized things immediately and everything just happened like clockwork. And I always have marveled at the work of volunteers, always. The ladies at CWL can tell you when we do a Christmas dinner, I'm always saying how amazed I am and how awesome they do everything and how great it is to be part of that. But I will say that event really pushed me to do more, to give more of myself and share more of my skills and my vision, because these communities are very special. Special people live here and we need to take care of them.
We've covered a lot of ground here in a short time. Melanie, is there anything else you'd like to add about all this before we wrap up?
I really think that I want to talk about voting, and I want to talk about the importance of voting. So many people have fought and died for us to have this democracy in Canada, and I think it is really important that we take that right very seriously. I think that we need to recognize that our vote is our voice, and we need to make sure that our voice is heard. So District 3 residents, please, I beg of you, use your right on October the 17th and vote.
Now, as we mentioned during that interview, Melanie Sampson is running against Brian Marchand in District 3. He is one of 3 people running in this election that have held the title of warden at some point. Of course, Brian Marchand, the most recent. Jason McLean also served very briefly as warden. He is running again in District 5. And right now, we're going to speak to the man who held the position of warden earlier than anyone else in this election, from 1985 to 1988. He is a council veteran, and he is trying once again to retain District 1 for Richmond County. His name is James Goyesh. Here's our interview with him right here in our Telile studios. We're pleased now to continue our special series of interviews with Richmond County municipal candidates for Telile 24/7. And we're happy to welcome an incumbent who is running for re-election in District 1 here in Richmond County. He is Councillor James Goyesh. James, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me,
That's
Adam.
a pleasure to have you here. And I want to begin just simply by asking, how is the campaign going so far?
The campaign is going great so far, and the thing with me is that I've been campaigning for the past 4 years. I think people in my district know me. They know what I have done on council. And of course, anytime you run a campaign, you're at the mercy of the taxpayers. They're the ones that decide. And like I said, I've been campaigning for 4 years.
So I want to pick up on that point, the idea that basically as soon as you're elected, you're campaigning again. And I know that your years on council, with just a bit of a break, go all the way back to the 80s. You served as warden from 1985 to 88.
I did, yeah.
Has it been a philosophy of yourself pretty much since the beginning that as soon as you've won election, you're basically campaigning again for the next campaign?
It is. I think the people put their confidence in you. They put it. That's why they elected you. And as soon as you get elected, it doesn't stop. That's when you got to do the work that the people ask you to do and represent them to the best of your ability. So if you do that from day one and continue, I think that's the same as campaigning. It's a small community. People know you. They know what you have done. And people don't expect for you to get all the answers. But what they do, they want you to respond to any inquiries they have. Sometimes it would be in your favor, that you have favorable response. Sometimes it's not. But they appreciate the fact that you tried your best. And that's what politics is all about, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. You've served on an 11-member council. You've served on a 10-member council. This past term for District 1 in Richmond County is the first time you've served on a 5-member council. Can you give me a little bit of a sense on what's been different serving on a smaller council than on one of the larger ones?
It's definitely different. It's an adjustment. But you got to look at that it's the same democratic process. The majority rules, and you have to accept that. And I mentioned before that democracy is not always the right thing, but the majority of people that vote, you got to go by the majority. And you have to accept that, and you have to move on and say, okay, I'll try again. I got to do a better job in presenting myself. And whatever the case may be, you have to represent the people that elected you. So you got to move on. That's politics, and this type of situation is not only in municipal council, it's in any sort of organization or establishment you belong to, be it federal politics, provincial, or whatever the case may be. The majority rules. It's too bad. It's, like I mentioned, a democratic process. It's not always the one that works, but you got to go according to the majority.
You've mentioned your constituents, the taxpayers, a couple of times, and I want to talk about your district a little bit because you served for several terms on the former District 2 for Richmond Council.
Right.
It was mainly Petty de Gras,
right.
Surrounding communities, Sampson's Cove, Little Ants, Alderney Point. That district has expanded now into the current District 1, which includes many other communities. It takes up half of Verichat. What's been different for you serving that constituency as opposed to your previous one, and has that been a challenge for you?
Well, definitely it is. I mean, you're talking about a larger geographic area, and you're serving a larger number of people. So therefore your work, and that's why I say that I make it a full-time job. I think the people in my district deserve full-time representation for the simple fact it's very difficult to be able to respond to the concerns and inquiries that people have, your taxpayer, especially with this increase in the districts. It's challenging, but very exciting. And you get the aging population, of course. 47% of your taxpayers are seniors. There's a lot of demands for senior housing. There's a lot of demands for housing grants through Nova Scotia Housing. You've got to fill in those forms. I make it a point to get copies of those. I have them at home. Anybody that wants to apply for grants of any sort, I have the application forms on, and I fill them out. I even fill them out. I supply the envelopes. I don't pay for their stamp, by the way.
Okay.
That's their responsibility. But I fill those out, and I find that you got to be available. Any phone calls you get, I make sure that I answer them, whether it's the same night or the next day. And that's very important to people. And there's one thing, Adam, you got to realize that a councillor is the politician closest to the people. They're the ones that they contact first. It doesn't matter if it's to deal with municipal, provincial, or federal politics. You're the one that they contact. So therefore, it's your job. You're a councillor, and a councillor means council. So you got to get the answers or find the answers. And like I say, maybe it's not the answers they want, but at least you got an answer. So that's the job of a councillor.
Yeah. So when you're asking constituents this time around what the issues are that matter to them, and you mentioned a couple of different things, you talked about seniors housing and affordable housing, but when you contact people around District 1, what are they saying to you? What are the issues on people's minds this campaign?
Well, the big issues right now, it's the same. The issues don't change that much. There's economic development that they talk about, tourism, retention of youth in the community, and all these things that they mention. But there's one aspect that you got to realize, that the community want a level of services, but they want to maintain a half-decent tax rate. We have seniors, like I mentioned before, that are on fixed incomes. That means that their ability to pay a high tax rate is just not there. And I must respect the seniors. The first thing they do pay are their taxes. That's something they're accustomed to, or not accustomed, but they want to do.
Yeah.
And when it comes to making a difference between, do I pay my taxes or do I have food on the table? And I think to maintain a half-decent tax rate is not only healthy for Richmond County, and at the same time providing a certain level of service that they need. Our residential rate is 80 cents. Our commercial rate is $2.10. So if you're looking at trying to build up your economy, have economic development, or have industries come in, or any entrepreneur that want a business, you got to have a half-decent commercial rate. That attracts them. Also, the community they're in, you need a church, you need a school, you need restaurants, and those are important. And you got to make sure that you provide a level of service to residents. That's very important. At the same time, be conscious of what type of area rate you're going to have. And to have a basic, very good, sound tax rate is very important.
We're into the home stretch of this interview, James. I just have a couple of questions left. I wanted to ask you about something that came up. Actually, the last time I interviewed you was 4 years ago, and I was with the reporter at the time, and you were running to get District 1 for the first time under the new 5-councillor setup.
Okay.
And at the time, you had a priority of eliminating specific expense accounts and allowances for municipal councillors. There was a bit of a cloud over the municipality at the time after what had happened with the expense scandal that had broken out months earlier. And you had said to me at the time, there isn't any need for as much of these special allowances as we had. Your exact words were, get rid of that. So 4 years later, do you feel that the county has done a better job in trimming the fat in this regard and making councillors more accountable? How do you feel that's gone?
I think we've done that, exactly what you're saying. I was against the infrastructure and activity funds that were allotted to councillors. I think that was in the tune of $60,000 per councillor. I found that there was no accountability for that kind of money. Because everybody received it. You wouldn't refuse one councillor in council compared to the other. It was money that you could give freely to any organization, regardless what it is, and not be accountable for it. And you're talking $300,000 per year. And over a period of time, that's a lot of money. So when you get rid of that, that means it opens the gate for, it opens for something that's very important, even probably infrastructure that we mentioned before, that we do have that needs attention. Well, these funds are there available to do these things. And we done that. In the travel expenses, for example, and for councillors and administration, has been dropped down by, I'd say, close to 3,000%. That's a lot of money. And I think that's very important. If you talk about accountability, that's where it starts. And you can check the expenses, they're online. We have dropped down amazingly the expenses of counselors and administration.
Last question to you, James, and I've been asking this question to other candidates that I've been speaking to as well for Telile 24/7. I'm always fascinated by who inspires the individual candidates and counselors to be involved in public service the way they are. And I just wonder, were there any one or two people over the years that not only inspired you to seek public office in the first place, but also to keep serving within the municipality over the years?
Well, in my case, I got to say, well, my parents are one, but the teaching profession, I grew up, I think I had amazing, very good teachers, fantastic teachers, and of course, the responsibility is always also on the student. But I find when I worked with municipal government back in '74 for 5.5 to 6 years, that I dealt a lot with residents, with people in the community, the taxpayers, and that also inspired me. I think being affiliated with the community, I got involved in a lot of organizations. I was president, vice president, and I even baseball clubs or local community organizations or whatever. And that inspires you as an individual. Speaking with the residents and talking with people, being associated with a lot of people every day, that's an inspiration in itself. That inspired me, and it continues to inspire me because I feel obligated and very interested in helping people. If I can do anything for you, it makes me feel great and good. And the reason I went for counselor is that I want to do it 100% of the time. I want to put full time is what I'm looking at when I do my job as a counselor. I can't do anything unless it's full time. I got to put 100% into the work, and it gives me great satisfaction to be able to do that. So. Represent the people that, as a matter of fact, put their faith into me. And I know when you run for politics, you're at the mercy of the taxpayers. They're the ones that decide. And if they do decide in your favor, then I feel you have an obligation to represent them to the best of your ability.
You have a few hundred bosses.
More than one.
Yes. Well, we've covered a lot of ground in just a short time, James, and I appreciate you giving me some time here today. Did you want to add anything else about all this before we wrap up?
Adam, I thank you very much, and I think this process that you guys are involved in is very good, not only for the candidates that are running, not only for the incumbent, but it's great for the public that they're able to see their candidate right up front, know exactly what to expect, and it helps them make the decision whether to go this way or that way. And like I said, I'm at the mercy of the taxpayers, and hopefully the job I've done in the past 4 years is to their satisfaction. If it is, they'll re-elect me. If not, I got no control.
Okay. James, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. It's been a pleasure. James Goyesh is the incumbent councillor for District 1 for Richmond County. He's currently in a 4-person race to win that seat on Election Day, October the 17th. Stay tuned for more Telile 24/7 in just a moment. Now let's head to Pondville Beach, where we're going to speak to District 2 candidate Carolyn Clackdoyle. This is her first time running for municipal politics in Richmond County. She's going to share some of her experiences, both inside and outside Cape Breton, and why she feels she has something to share with the people of Richmond County in this election campaign and beyond. Carolyn, thank you for joining me on Telile 24/7 today.
Thank you very much, Adam.
It's a pleasure to have you here. Can you give me a sense, first of all, as to why you've decided to run for municipal council in Richmond County? What led you to make that decision?
Well, I think what led me to it is basically the support of my daughter and my mother to begin with, because I knew it was going to happen, this election. I'd heard that there would be an election, and in the middle of a pandemic, And so I didn't see myself initially as a candidate, but actually I was home while my daughter came from another province, and we were together for 2 weeks. And what happened was we basically started listening to the conference, the Women's Leadership Conference, and we were talking about the issues and talking about Ilma Dam. And my daughter's often heard me talk about municipal issues in other places I've lived. And then she just turned to me and said, well, why aren't you running? And it was my first sort of jolt thinking, why don't I see who is running? If there's another person from the conference that might want to step forward in my district. And so when I found that maybe I would be the only women candidate on this island running, I felt a responsibility to highlight some of the issues that we have here and just put myself forward. My mother reminded me, you've got a background in this, you've certainly always been involved in community groups wherever you've lived, and I think you should do it. And so together we came up with sort of a plan. How would I do this in a pandemic? And we thought, well, we'd have to go door to door. And that was very helpful having my mother on board, because I call it the Blanche-mobile. We were together, and she was taking notes, and I was driving, and then we'd stop at places she would usually recommend to stop first, because she's been here for 50 years, even though she's from Shetty Camp, which is part of Cape Breton, so she's French Canadian. And I'm also rooted in this community. I'm Irish and French Canadian, French Acadian and Irish, excuse me. And so here we were, sort of planning this. How are we going to go about and listen to people? And that's what we did. And we tried as well. If we saw anyone on a property outside, I immediately stopped and started talking to that person if they were willing to talk to me. And I just found it really warm, and it just opened up my eyes to a lot of what this community has to offer. I mean, I think obviously there's many people already involved in committee work and in community volunteering, but I think some people really felt, no one really asked them what they thought about a particular area that they love in their community, and also just going to people's homes and going to their properties and them showing me what kind of view they had. I just have a whole different perspective on the island, and I'm going to always treasure that.
It sounds like this has been a wonderful reconnection to you to Isle Madame. Can you tell me a little bit about your family history here and about your roots in this area? Can you paint a picture of that for me?
Yes, thank you very much. It does help when campaigning that my father was a teacher for many years at the school, and my mother has been living in the community with my father for over 50 years. So she also knows so many people at the school, and she worked there for about 20 or so years as a paraprofessional. And so she was in the cafeteria. And it's amazing that she'll just be recognized right now. She on the street, and she won't recognize who's saying hello at first, but then as soon as they let her know, I'm from such and such a year, and you were in the school when I was in the school, and there's a big light that turns on. So that's been really lovely for both of us.
Now, at this point of the interview, some of you may be wondering why I'm interviewing Carolyn Clackdoyle at Pondville Provincial Park Beach. Here's Carolyn herself to give the answer.
Well, actually, the reason I asked Adam if we could come to the beach is because I've always found a lot of centering and reflection, and this is a place to kind of de-stress. And I think I think of it as our sand sidewalk, that whoever you are, like all over Ilma Dam and from away as well, or if we have visitors, we make it here. And whether it's morning or evening, there will be people walking on this beach, and you will be able to say hello and sometimes recognize people or meet someone new. So it's it's got its own opportunity to bring the community together.
On the topic of bringing the community together, candidate Clackdoyle told us that there are a lot of community organizations that have attracted her attention since she started returning to Isle Madame over the past couple of years.
Each time I came back to participate in coalitions that were already formed here. So like the Seniors Take Action Coalition, I was at the Louisdale Parish Hall, and I saw the seniors around. There was a lunch provided and there was speakers, and I was hearing that the problems of being supported in the home, so that you wouldn't have to leave the home if you needed maintenance help, or if in fact your finances were very stressed. And that was before the pandemic. And so now that has been exacerbated during the pandemic, in the sense that there isn't as many activities for seniors to do. It was already an issue of isolation, and also in participation in the community. And I think, when I look at sort of amenities, like what's on the beach or what's in our parks, for example, what's on our trails, if there isn't places people can sit and restroom facilities nearby, and having accessible areas where you could push a stroller, where you could come by wheelchair, then you're not going to have the whole family involved. There's actually also plenty of visitors, right, that would come and wouldn't have, they might be in a car with people of different needs, and they won't have that welcome if we don't provide it. So that gives you an example. So Seniors Take Action Coalition, but also there was a farm conference held at Discoos Groundswell, and that happened at the beginning of this year, and I was part of that. And I saw everyone contribute to showing us what could be possible with food security in Cape Breton and in our region. That there's already people working on this. We just need to throw our arms around them and find opportunities to purchase things that are local. And I saw some amazing collaboration between people, and ideas about producing things that would be very complementary for the farmers markets.
So essentially you feel that you can translate your experience with these community organizations into solid service for the county as a councillor.
Yes, I would think so. I think those coalitions that are already formed here, there was an emergency management, for example, group that met at the Lion's Den by the arena in Louisdale, and I was also attending that. And what was very interesting there is that was before the pandemic, and there was a whole issue of comfort stations. How do we transport people when an event happens, an unusual weather event or power outage in the winter? How do we, again, wrap our arms around needs in the community? And I thought there was a lot of very good ideas. So again, I would be working with the communities and the committees that are already working on this.
For the next portion of our interview with District 2 Council candidate Carolyn Clackdoyle, we've shifted from Pondville to Martinique Provincial Park. So, Ms. Clackdoyle, why are we here?
Well, in going door to door, over the span of a week recently, it was a theme that resonated with everyone on all the districts. Is we have this beautiful park, and there's an opportunity here to welcome visitors to it. There's some challenges. Right now we basically have an off-the-grid situation. We don't have a dumping station. We don't have well water. And but maybe this is something that could creatively be imagined, if not through government exclusively, maybe involving the private sector in some way. These were ideas that came from the community. So I wanted to highlight as well that the location we are is where you see our historical sister communities right across the water and how accessible they are. So I look forward to working with everyone who comes onto the municipal table if I'm elected, to work on the strategic plan together, and maybe make a little bit of changes if we need to reflect what we've been hearing in the election.
Speaking of Richmond County's strategic plan, I note that a lot of your professional experience over the years has been in the planning sector. Can you describe that a little bit and tell us how you could apply it practically if elected in District 2?
Well, I'm a little bit geeky because that's what plans do is they kind of give you a story through numbers, through data, through trends, through a sort of a deep look at the community in many ways, geographically, socially, economically. And so you kind of see how maybe the lens of what a potential business person would coming into the community want to know, and also what we need to know in order to meet needs here. We need that kind of information. On the other hand, as a planner, working as a planner, I certainly see the value and the importance of community consultation and how that's done, getting the community's voice into the story. And it can be done so creatively and this is our challenge too, of bringing the community into the plan so that it really reflects their priorities, what they want to have happen in their community, and to meet the needs.
Does the basic process of strategic planning work during a pandemic? We have seen difficult years for Richmond County's tourism sector, for its small business sector, and for life in general throughout the county. Are there ways that these issues can be addressed during a pandemic, especially given the uncertainty surrounding a second wave?
Well, this is I think, a really opportune time. And speaking with people in my district, how they put it was, let's plan the party now, the post-pandemic party. Well, we can take that a step further and say, yeah, let's do the preparation here for the welcome. And that also means welcoming each other. Because as we try to grow in resilience during the pandemic, because we don't really know how quickly the economy can rebound and what kind of economy exactly it will be, to be able to welcome each other is a strength. And for example, the age-friendly plan reminds us that housing people and meeting their needs, their health needs and care needs is an economy. There's people involved in that kind of care, and we must meet human needs, and the needs of the relationships that we have ecologically, so that we don't do damage. We do actually prevention, which seems to be the focus of the age-friendly plan. I'm really quite excited about it. I thought it was well done with a lot of collaboration. And I understand there will be a team with the counselor being part of that. And I think that's something that I certainly would like to work with.
As we wound down our conversation in Martinique, I asked District 2 Council candidate Carolyn Clackdoyle who inspires her as she seeks to continue her public service, possibly with an election to Richmond Council.
Well, I thought maybe I'd mention someone who volunteered in the community. It was abroad. It was in France, a small rural community where I was living. And his job was to welcome immigrant families, students who were from immigrant families, and help them learn the language and just acclimate to the culture. And so we were part of that, because I had to learn French in France to really learn to speak it, and so did my children and my family. So we were kind of welcomed to sort of on a personal level with this gentleman, but he got me involved in a regional plan for linking trails, and they became it started with bicycle trails, and we really didn't know where we were going at the time. And so this was really interesting for me, because it was how the community sorts through these things, and there was how effective it is when you have a really good champion who, like him, this particular gentleman, in the evenings, he had a vision that the trail system should be accessible to all ages, that whatever we would develop. And so what we did is we did things that were fun, that involved the community, and we met and we did trails that weren't actually designated trails, but we check things out, and so we can make recommendations, like how suitable is that, and how suitable is that for a family, for kids. And we had ride-alongs and burleys with us, and we had we also went to other parts of France who had better amenities. And as we were going along, we would see somebody pulling a senior on the back of a bike, and we saw recently, actually, in Ottawa, I saw the same thing. A senior was on the front of a bike. So there's a lot of possibilities for innovation and development of things. If you're sure what the vision is, and this gentleman for me was really inspiring because, even though he had cancer and right to the end, he was such a very strong spokesman for how important it was to have this linkage so that everyone would have something to do no matter where you lived in our region, and you could go visit the other region. And so maybe that would stimulate, at the time we were thinking maybe that would stimulate more ideas with bicycle tourism and little events along the way. So I'm very much looking forward now to really looking at the ATV trails that we do have and say, what are the points of interest and how can they be made, some of the trails, amenable to a lot of other people and doing different things on it. And it's part of the age-friendly plan to include people of all ages in whatever project that you have and whatever idea you have.
We've covered a lot of ground today, both literally and figuratively. Do you have anything else you'd like to add before we wrap this interview up?
Oh, I just really appreciate you coming out and agreeing to stopping a few of the sites that we have in Elmadam and that's in my district. I'm going to be sending out a flyer soon, and hopefully before the early voting, so that you can see that I have been listening. I will be listening if you vote for me, and I really do care about your vision of the community. Thank you.
Running in an election campaign during a pandemic is one thing. Running in an election campaign when you're a paramedic during a pandemic is quite another. But that's what Rod Samson is doing. He served as municipal councillor for the previous District 2 in Richmond County from 2012 to 2016. He ran again in 2016, and while that election didn't turn out the way he wished, he's giving it another try in 2020, running in the current District 1. We spoke to Rod Sampson here at the Telile studios a little earlier this week. Here's that interview right now. And we're pleased to be joined by District 1 candidate for Richmond County, Rod Sampson, in our Telile 24/7 studios today. Rod, thank you for joining us on the show this week.
Well, thank you, Adam. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you, and I'll begin just by asking simply, how is the campaign going?
Well, I mean, this year it's a little different, with a global pandemic and all, COVID-19. So we chose not to go door to door. So it's kind of like, some phone calls and a little bit of Facebook stuff. Though I'm meeting people outside, whether it be at the grocery store or at at whatever, if there was any events or at the mail or whatnot, and we chat there. And it's quite interesting. It's quite different for sure.
How is that all working for you as a candidate? Because, like you say, you don't have the luxury of being able to go door to door and to see people the way you normally would. So do you feel like you're hearing from the people, and what are they saying to you in terms of what their issues are?
Well, I'm hearing from some people, of course not everyone, and that's the sad part of this, what's going on these days. At the end of the day, that we all know that there are issues going on here, and people are echoing the problems and what they feel are problems, and you're listening to them and trying to bring that up to council, and hopefully bring it up to council and try and rectify some of their problems, whether it be in housing or whether it be in tourism or just job security or in jobs in general, healthcare. There's so many things that I wish I could snap my fingers and fix it all, but I don't think it can be done that way. But I think we can move forward if we all work together. We can move forward and nip a lot of these things in the bud one at a time. Yeah.
You come from a unique perspective because you are one of a handful of former councillors that are running in this election that didn't win election the last time around, but are trying to return to municipal service. And just as with last time, you're dealing with a bigger riding than the one that you last served, the old District 2 that took in Petty de Gras, Little Ants, Sampson's Cove, Alderney Point, those areas, and now you have a larger district, just as you had in 2016 when you ran. Is it a challenge to be able to try to cover a larger district, especially, as you say, during these pandemic times?
Well, it definitely is a challenge. I mean, the bigger district is a lot more doors, a lot more people, and mostly, a few extra problems, a few extra issues, I guess. I shouldn't say problems, but issues that need to be rectified. Not always Pittergraw and Little Ants issues are the same as Alderney Point or Cape Oget or anything of that nature. So, it's definitely different, and it's a little bit more difficult. But hopefully, as people start chatting and explaining what their issues are, hopefully we can, like I said, start rectifying some of those issues. Yeah.
This is your third consecutive election campaign. As we mentioned, you ran in 2016. Why did you feel that the time was right to run again? What compelled you to put your name on the ballot again this time around?
Well, to be honest, at first, after 2016, I was pretty devastated, I guess, with the loss, and I understood that people may have thought that I wasn't representing properly, or maybe I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. I'm not 100% sure, but as time went on, people kept approaching myself or my wife and encouraging me to run again, and that kind of, between that and then talking to my family and are we ready for this again? Yeah, totally. It's an easy issue. It's an easy yes for me. I love my community. I love Richmond County, and if I can do anything to help us move forward over the next 4 years, then I definitely want to be the person to do that. Yeah.
You served from 2012 to 2016 in the former District 2. That was, shall we say, a colorful period in Richmond municipal history with all that was going on. But it was also a period in which there was really quite a debate over whether to reduce the number of council members from 10 to 5. You were part of a group that advocated very openly for the reduction of the number of council districts. And you come out of that, you mentioned a tough loss in that election of 2016. Is there something you've taken away from all of that, including the last election campaign and its result, that you think may have given you a good lesson and a really different perspective on this campaign in 2020? What do you take away from all that?
Well, one of the things I do take away is not to take people for granted or take things in general for granted. It could have been something that I've done in 2016, and that could have been one of the reasons I wasn't successful. But I vowed that that will never happen again. I've been an advocate for many things, and being truthful and honest with people is definitely something that I strive to do, and I take pride in.
Was it hard for you to be away from the council table over the past 4 years, not necessarily in reference to one or two specific issues or how council dealt with it, but was it difficult for you overall not being able to be part of all that?
Yeah, it was difficult. I mean, I'm sure some of the things are, I'm kind of glad I was away from, but no, in all seriousness, no, it was difficult because I enjoyed my time helping people, and that was the whole point of being there. Trying to move ourselves forward, and we had come up with great strategies that ended up being tossed aside. I really don't want to say tossed aside, but ended up being revamped, I guess, and we had negative impact, I believe, on that. And one of the things I'm talking about was the tourism strategy that we had here, which was quite aggressive, and it's sad that it didn't go through, and there's lots of organizations that are sad and not happy about that, but it is what it is. Hopefully we can change that in the future for sure.
Well, I wanted to wrap up this interview by asking you, as I've asked all the candidates for Richmond County this time around, who inspires you in terms of leadership or even just basic public service? Are there one or two people through your life that might have made an impact on you in that regard? Who do you turn to in times like this?
Well, regretfully, I can't turn to this person anymore, but before I ran, John Boudreau, the former warden, my councillor in District 2, who I had many conversations with, who opened up a lot of doors for me, for organizations around the county. He was quite an advocate for the people around here and for economic development and whatnot. He taught me a few things when it came to some politics and stuff like that. And I'm very grateful to have known him very well, and no, I'm hoping that he's smiling somewhere up there, and with the work that we're doing here today.
I rarely saw John without a smile on his face while he was warden, so I hope that is the case for you as well, too. All right, we've covered a lot of ground in a short time. Rod, I appreciate you giving us some time here today. Did you want to add anything else before we wrap this up?
Well, I just want to add a great thank you to yourself, Adam, and the staff here at Telile for giving us the opportunity to do this. For me, not going door to door, this is kind of a bonus for residents to see what I have to say. And if they have any questions, by all means, they're always welcome to give me a call or message me on Facebook or call me at home. I don't know if you want to put my number up there, 902-226-3087. Or if you want to really get a hold of me all the time, it's 902-227-7727. And I just hope that people exercise their right to vote. And, advance poll coming up on Saturday the 10th and Tuesday the 13th and Election Day the 17th. I just hope everybody gets out there and we have a great voter turnout.
Well, we're certainly hoping for the best in that regard. And in the meantime, we want to thank you once again, Rod, for joining us at the Telile studios today. And good luck in the rest of the campaign.
Thank you so much, Adam. Appreciate it.
And that wraps up this week's edition of Telile 24/7. Thank you very much for tuning in. And I'd like to thank once again our guests this week, James Goyesh, Rod Samson, Carolyn Clackdoyle, and Melanie Sampson. And a special thank you to Nick Boudreau and Becky Borono at the Telile studios for helping me out this week with the studio interviews and various other parts of the show. As always, feel free to call or email us if you have any ideas for future interviews or stories for Telile 24/7. And we remind you that there are many ways that you can find out about the election candidates for Richmond County. On our Telile YouTube page, you can see the Candidates Forum that took place on Monday. That's going to be featured on our YouTube channel for the coming days. And there are individual profiles of the candidates that are also available. You can check those out on our YouTube page as well. For now, I'm Adam Cooke. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you next week with a brand new edition of Telile 24/7. We'll see you then.